Hi, I'm Jonathan Metter, and we're here in PIKO America's service department with more tips to help you get more fun out of your PIKO trains. We're going to cover now some steps that you can take with your locomotive that are simple maintenance steps. We'll call this the inside the Loco Experience. It does involve actually opening up the gearbox. This is not something that you'll want or need to do very often, but if you run your trains a lot, it's something you might need to do once every few months or every year or two. Depending on how much you run your trains. You don't want to open up the gearbox every week or something to, you can eventually wear out these screws and strip them out. But something as much as you run your trains, you can do that. So there are 6 screws on this particular gearbox. Some will have 4, more or less, depending on the loco. And on this Mogul locomotive there are 6. So we're going to loosen all 6 of those screws and save those. And that's the last of the screws. We're going to gently lift the bottom cover off the gearbox. Set that aside. Save it. Okay, now we can see inside the gearbox and we can see the condition of everything that's in there and get a good idea of what we need to do to maintain our locomotive. If you ever need to change the pickup shoes, this is the steps you'd follow, and that's a standard item. It's in the catalog. You can get that from your PIKO retailer. It's item number 36110, which is a set of 2 pickup shoes and 2 springs to replace those. And those just drop down into place, and just make sure they're springing freely. And hopefully we've got a little bit of the PIKO conductive paste on each one of those springs to act as a heat sink and keep things corrosion free. Very important little feature going along the length of the gearbox are the 2 pickup wipers. Those are also a standard item on this Mogul locomotive. That's a number 36112. That goes for almost all of your 6-wheeled, 6-driver PIKO steam locos. That same standard item available from your retailer. And those are very critical for keeping good electrical contact, because those gather all the power from the pickup shoes and from the wheels and route that to rods that go up through the gearbox and transmit it to the rest of the locomotive. Those do wear through after a time. They're made of a really durable bronze material, but they will eventually wear through. And if that happens, then your locomotive is immediately going to have almost no pickup and a lot of other problems. So check those, make sure that they're not completely worn through. There's a small screw that holds each one of those on, and you can easily loosen that and replace that with a new one, or just remove it for checking. While we're in there, we're going to check the gear grease. We've got a small amount of grease on each gear. We don't need a lot. People tend to over grease just a little bit. Make sure that there's a thin coating. You can see the light reflecting and showing the shine of a little bit of grease. We'll use the PIKO 36216 gear grease, which is a light non-hardening gear grease, and put a little dab on a couple of gear spots and let the mechanism just wear that in and spread it around. We also put a little dab of the conductive paste on each of those pickup shoes, pickup wipers, between them and the axle. And again, just a little dab. We don't want too much of any of these chemicals. Just a little dab, and that will also keep good electrical contact, keep out the moisture and corrosion. And that's the main features that we need to look for inside the gearbox. Further maintenance really would be after a very long time and a lot of operation, and shouldn't need to be done. It is possible if you find that the gears are worn out. Those can be replaced. The axles come out of the gearbox and pull apart, and the little hub in the center is easily replaced. They just press back in, and they're tight press fit. There are a couple of different ones depending on which locomotive you have, so you'd want to check either with PIKO America or with your retailer for advice on that. The red color is a clue. Certain ones are either white or a dark grayish brown color, and certain ones are red, so you want to match up with new ones that match the same color to make sure you've got the right gears. One final tip before we put the gearbox cover back on and seal things up. Make sure that your wheels are lined up. You can see here the counterweights on the wheels and the spokes of the wheels. Make sure that those are lined up at the same point in the revolution. If they're not, if you've skipped one or two gear teeth out of alignment on one, you'll need to pop that axle up a little bit to disengage it, disengage the gears, and turn it and snap it back down into place with those properly lined up, and you can use the spokes on the wheels as a guide to sight and make sure that particularly the front and the rear are lined up with each other. If you don't have those lined up, the locomotive, if they're just one or two gear teeth out of alignment, the locomotive may run, but it'll run with kind of a lope once with every revolution of the wheels. So make sure that those are lined up properly so it should be operating smoothly. We'll pop the gearbox bottom cover plate back on and tighten down those screws. We might have tighten them finger tight, hand tight, but not over tighten them, but do make sure that they're secured down so that they keep the gears properly meshed and lined up. And that's it.